Okay, my friends, it is Saturday, March 1st, 2025, and this is a daily brief. I've got a lot of ground to cover, and we're not going to really talk about what was in the headlines yesterday, the surreal scolding in the Oval Office. I'll talk about that a little bit at the end and how I've kind of tried to process this in the last 12 or 15 hours. And then we'll talk about other things throughout like the normal daily brief. Yesterday, I showed you how to write President Trump. If you're an American citizen and you want to write the White House and say, look, you're on the wrong track. What are you doing abandoning Ukraine? Here's how. It'll take you 2 minutes to do it. And I was talking about what happened after the clash in the Oval Office yesterday. So I'll talk about that more later. In fact, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do a live stream to talk about that at 10 o'clock Eastern Standard. And if you missed that, you can come back and see the comments afterwards. But we're going to start here. 10:50. Russians off the battlefield. That's about what it's been throughout all of February. It's been very low. It's been like an average of, I think, like 1,200 or something. We'll look at that in just a moment. 11 tanks off the battlefield, 15 armored fighting vehicles, 61 artillery systems, 107 vehicles and fuel tanks off the battlefield. So this number for vehicles and fuel tanks is high, and this number is pretty low, and that's been consistent throughout most of February. Now, if we look at the actual numbers, so February, the average was 1,274 Russian casualties. That is a far cry from the highest in December at 1,570, and then second highest at 1,556, and then third highest at 1,515, and even fourth highest at 1,354. So I'm not even sure that 1,247 is actually the fifth highest, or what. I mean, I don't know what it is exactly, but it's low. And if you just take, okay, so here, if you take 34,920, and then somebody mentioned comments like, well, February is a short month, so you got to add an extra 3% for 28, 29, 30, 31. Okay, so let's do that. So that would be 35,000. Right? But even 35,000 is still only 75% of what it was last month. So it's really interesting to see how it's declined. Now, why it's declined is the next question. Russian forces are losing momentum for a third month in a row, according to the deep state. And yeah, that's right. If you look at it, highest casualties in December, second highest in January, and it's dropped again in February. That's right. So what's going on with the decline? What's the decline in Russian assaults? Why can't they carry the momentum forward? They really can't. We'll talk about that in just a minute. Okay, overnight, Russia launched 154 drones. A total of 103 were shot down. 51 were suppressed by electronic warfare. Of course, we know suppression doesn't mean that it's all gone. Yesterday, there was 208 Shahed drones. And so you couple those two together, and what you get is 362 over 2 days. That's 5.5 days, 5.5 days worth of drones. With their production value, as we know, is about 65 per day, unless something has changed. And so, yeah, I mean, they're really top heavy on the Shahed drone attacks. So last night, Russia attacked Kharkiv with just 9 Shahed drones. Just that one city only had 9. The strike heavily damaged a hospital, leading to the evacuation of 60 patients. 7 people were injured. So this is a country that's ready for peace, right? They want peace. Nah, they don't want peace. Putin wants peace. That's why he keeps attacking hospitals and residential houses across Ukraine. Here's footage from inside the hospital in Kharkiv that was hit by Russian drones last night. Yeah, so, okay, that's what, yeah, okay. Now, I haven't done this for a while. We're going to look at a battlefield update and just see, like, what the map looks like. And so I've done this where we're looking at a number of major places where there are attacks, just to get the intensity of where the fighting's hottest. So in the Kharkiv direction, there was only one unsuccessful stormed position. Okay, so that's little. And then we go to the Liman direction. There were 2 attacks, but I actually see 4 arrows here. So we're going to count that as 4. Okay. And then we go to the Kupiansk direction. Ukrainian defenders repulsed offensive operations. And again, they didn't say the number, but I see 4 arrows. So we're going to say 4 attacks in Kupiansk. Then the Zaporizhzhia region, the invaders trying to advance in these areas, and there's only 2 arrows here. So as far as I can tell, there's only 2. So it's been low, like 2, 4, something like that. Seversk direction, twice attacked. Bakhmut front, twice. So you count that up, and I see 7 arrows here. So I'm gonna go with 7. Okay. Northwest of temporarily occupied Horlivka, 15 attacks. Okay. And then we get to, on the southernmost front, Donetsk region, 8 times and 3 times near these cities. So, okay, so we're going to go with 11 because of the 8 and 3. And then in the cross direction, 26 times. Okay, that's not a lot. I mean, that's really, really low. And so that's what's really interesting here is that there's these low numbers of casualties and these low numbers of attacks. And what's causing that? So I was talking to someone last night who I can't say who this is, but who kind of confirmed to me. And so take this with a grain of salt because I can't cite here that this is what's going on. So this is theory, but this was the theory that I had that was confirmed by somebody who I can't really say who's kind of plugged in. And no, it wasn't Greg Terry, but someone who's kind of plugged in. But I can't cite my sources, so you can just discount it if you want. But two theories here that I think are actually useful. So one is this high number of vehicles and fuel tanks is because of drones, because we're talking about drones, because I like talking about drones. I think drones are really a game-changing thing in modern warfare. And so the vehicles and fuel tanks, these aren't like coming into assault, because remember, there are low assaults here, right? The low numbers of assaults. They're not coming to assaults. Those drones are going behind the lines and hitting these vehicles and fuel tanks and that sort of thing. So that's where those numbers are coming from. Now, someone like Andrew Perpetua would be able to validate something like that even more if he could be part of this conversation. But this okay. So that's part one. The second one is this, that the Ukraine. I said about a week or two ago that the Ukrainians are using. I guess it was 2 weeks ago. I wasn't really here last week. The Ukrainians are using drones like close air support. Like they don't have A-10 Warthogs, but they do have a line of drones that can come and rain fire down on you if you get too close. And so that could also be part of what is preventing this, this a large number of assaults. They just don't know what to do with that. By the way, this is really important, and I want you to understand or hear this. So if you wanted to do more for Ukraine, and if you have some kind of technological background, I was connecting with someone who is plugged in with the Ukrainian army and other like nonprofit kind of stuff to develop things, to develop drones and other technological things. So if you have a tech background, you're a retired engineer or something along those lines, put that in the comments below. Like, I'm interested. Just put the word "I'm interested." I'll know what you're talking about. And you don't have to say what it is that you do, just to see if this is something that you're interested in doing. Because if it is, then I'm going to try to connect you, perhaps, if there's enough interest. So if you have that kind of technological background that you want to donate some skills to how to develop some technological things in Ukraine, just put "I'm interested" in the comments below. Okay, let's get back to this. So some other news. I saw this, Dimitri, from War Translated. Russian mobilization referral system turned into a scam. So group recruits alcoholics and brings people with mental disorders to sign contracts under the Bring a Friend program. But the real issue isn't just fraud. Military offices eagerly accept them and boast about exceeding quotas. Now, when you hear that, you hear what's going on in Ukraine. I hear the agency problem. So there's a difference between the owner and the agent, and if the agent is not working on behalf of the owner, if there's a disconnect between, like, so think about banks during the 2008 crash. If people were originating mortgage loans, I know this is a weird analogy, but if they were originating mortgage loans and then having to hang on to them, they originated them properly. And if they weren't doing that, if they were originating the loans and then selling them off, well, they don't care how much fraud's involved in it at all. So That's the kind of thing that's happening here. Okay, scammers are dragging alcoholics, people with cerebral palsy, and psychologically unstable individuals into signing contracts. Regions are signing contracts with them to exceed their quotas due to the huge payouts for signing contracts and the Bring a Friend campaign. Entire fraudulent groups are operating in some regions. They gain the trust of alcoholics, antisocial individuals, and people with mental health issues, delivering them to the military enlistment offices to sign contracts. Fine, scammers will always find a loophole. That's something law enforcement should deal with. But what about the recruitment centers? Do they even see who they're signing contracts with? Or are they so blinded by the desire to report success and present nice numbers to top leadership that they don't care? So, yeah, it's the agent problem. Okay, so that's what's going on in Russia. More of what's going on in Russia. Media reports that the arbitrary court of Krasnodar Krai has fined the Kama shipping company, which owned the Volganeft 212 oil tanker, which sank into Kerch Strait in December of 2024, 30,000 rubles. Sounds like a lot, but it's actually $338. The oil tanker that caused great ecological damage was fined $338. At the same time, according to preliminary estimates of the Earth Concern Everyone Project experts, the damage from the oil spill may reach 33 billion rubles or $372 million. Yeah, so that's what's happened here with that oil tanker that should never have been out in the Black Sea. It's really not rated for that, carrying this crude because, the Russian Shadow Fleet, and yeah, $338. Okay, today's Russian papers. Europe and the U.S. are on opposite sides of the barricades. For us, the divorce between the U.S. and Europe is a political plus, said the Russian papers. But warnings, too, against naive optimism over the thaw of U.S.-Russian ties. Let's listen to a little.
Until very recently, there were two derogatory phrases that popped up a lot in the Russian media to identify Russia's chief enemies: the collective West, often meaning America and Europe, and the Anglo-Saxons.
Okay, collective West is something that I've heard a whole lot, and sometimes it's the Anglo-Saxons, but collective West seems to be the term of choice when I'm reading RT and TASS and Pravda.
Meaning mainly America and Britain. However, the thaw in US-Russian relations and the tensions between Donald Trump's America and Europe have for now changed the official narrative here and the language. Suddenly, the collective West doesn't seem very collective anymore, and Moscow no longer identifies the US and the UK as one and the same. So, in the eyes of Moscow, who is the enemy now? Well, I'm seeing this phrase a lot now: the old world, meaning Europe, often with a negative connotation. Vladimir Putin talks about a section of the Western elite which is determined to preserve instability. Also, references to the party of war in Europe, which hates Russia and Trump.
Yeah, isn't that interesting how they're splitting, right? And it's not like Trump isn't helping them split. Like Trump is aiding that split, willingly or unwillingly, I'm not sure, but Trump's not really helping that cause. But they're no longer talking about the collective. I just thought the rhetoric change was really interesting. Okay, let's just talk about this really quickly, and I'm going to do a live stream, and then I might even talk about it as a separate video, let alone in the three big stories. So you know what happened in the Oval Office last night, the big blow up. If you don't know what happened there, you can go back and you can watch the scolding in the Oval Office to see the actual video of it, or what happened in the aftermath in this video. So if you're watching this, you're like, wow, what just happened? And so Tim Pool is one that was taking the Russian money, whether he knew it or not, he was still taking that. Zelensky is too arrogant. This was shockingly bad leadership. Okay, there's no punctuation here, and this is a run-on sentence, so bad points for that. But no, it's not shockingly bad leadership. My PhD is in organizational leadership, and I was like, what are you talking about? Because I watched that whole thing. But then I was reading comments like this, and I'm reading comments like this from Bill Kristol. Now, Bill Kristol, if you don't know who he is, he's the original never-Trumper, okay? Two people disrespected the United States in the Oval Office today, President Trump and Vice President Vance. One person spoke in the best interest of the American tradition, President Zelensky. Now, I agree with Bill Kristol, but I gave you that caveat here to let you know which side he's coming from so that you can make sense of that. Here's President Trump's. Now, so it's interesting, this side or this view and that view, but let's read Donald Trump's statement on truth after that, and then I'm going to conclude this in just a moment. So, a statement from President Donald Trump. We had a very meaningful meeting in the White House today. Much was learned that could never be understood without a conversation under such fire and pressure. It's amazing what comes out through emotion, and I have determined that President Zelensky is not ready for peace if America is involved. Uh-oh, that's bad. So now we've gone from America as an ally to America as a neutral arbiter who's not necessarily going to support Ukraine or Zelensky. Okay, he's not ready for peace if America's involved because he feels our involvement gives him a big advantage in negotiations. I don't want advantage, I want peace. He's disrespected the United States of America and its cherished Oval Office. He can come back when he is ready for peace. He disrespected the United States and its cherished Oval Office. Like, I've never seen a U.S. president talk to anyone, any dignitary, like not even like the worst kind of dignitary that might have visited the Oval Office. Never seen them talk to him like that. Now, I say that to say this: whether it is Tim Pool or Tim Pool here. Yeah, right. Or whether it is Bill Kristol or Donald Trump or my view, it's like it's all a Rorschach test. It's really interesting to watch how this is played out. If you don't know who Rorschach is, Rorschach's the guy that came up with the ink blot test, right? So how you see what happened is more telling about what you think rather than what actually happened here. So, do you see two people high-fiving, or do you see dancing bears, or what exactly do you see? Do you see a butterfly, or do you see something else, right? It just is a way of you. So what you saw in the Oval Office here, well, not here, in the Oval Office is telling about how you actually see things as much as it is about what was going on there. I was watching the news last night and I was going like, wait a minute, you saw that? How did you see that? Like listening to Fox on one side and then CNN on the other. It was really interesting to see how that all played out last night. Okay, a last little bit here. Just because you know how I am with these drones, we're going to watch some Russian drones get knocked out of the sky. And yeah, that's what we'll do here as we close. Thank you, my friends, for the time. Thank you for the likes. Thank you for the shares and the subscribes. And thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.